A group of high-profile Canadian business leaders is taking action against systemic racism in this country. They've launched the Black North Initiative, which aims to increase representation of Black people in boardrooms and among executive ranks across Canada. The initiative will also ask corporate leaders to pledge specific targets. So how will the group measure actual change? Wes Hall is the executive chairman and founder of Kingsdale Advisors, a shareholder services and advisory firm. He's also founder and chair of the newly formed Canadian Council of Business Leaders Against Anti-Black Systemic Racism. He joins me from Toronto. Hi, Mr. Hall. Great to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you too.
Thank you so much for making time for the program. I wanted to start off with this group that you have founded in this council. Can you tell us about it and why you felt now was the time for it?
Well, the Black North Initiative was really founded by business leaders to solve a problem that politicians, unfortunately, has not been able to solve. We know as business people, we face challenges all the time, daily, quite frankly, the most of which, the largest of which is the pandemic. And sometimes these challenges just come overnight and we have to solve them very quickly. We have been dealing with systemic racism, anti-Black systemic racism for centuries, quite frankly, on this continent. And every time we've had issues come up and there are demonstrations, politicians make a statement and they leave, and it comes back up again and make a statement and they leave. So we decided for the first time, we're going to try something different. We're going to get together as business leaders and we're going to take a business approach to solving this problem. And that's why the initiative was formed.
So what is the business approach to solving the problem?
Okay, so if I'm running a business and I set targets, business people appreciate numbers. So every quarter we report to our stakeholders and we tell them that what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And then at the end of that quarter, we're measured. Where we succeed, were we successful, did we fail? If we failed, then we tell folks what we're going to do the next time. And then we tell them what the plan is. And the next time, if we succeed, if we fail, generally what happens to us as business leaders, we get fired from that job. But in the case of politics, unfortunately, when they fail, nobody gets fired and life goes on. And as a result of that, the problem also goes on. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the problem and say, what are the impediments this issue? What are the impediments to our employees? And we're going to solve those impediments one by one. For example, if at the very top of the company, we have 0 Blacks on the board, at the board level, 0 Blacks at the senior management level, then we're going to ask ourselves, is there a systemic reason that causes that? And then as business leaders, we go identify what the systemic reason is, and we come up with solutions to solve it.
What has the reaction been like from other executives, from other companies? What kind of response have you received?
So we sent out the invitations yesterday, and within, I would say, 2 hours, we received 80 responses from business leaders that said, we are on board. And we're talking about some of the largest companies in Canada. They did not make excuses. They said, we recognize the fact that we have a problem and we know we can solve the problem. So they didn't come back and say to me, Wes, what does it mean? Wes, what do we have to do? They are business people. And when business people are faced with challenges and they can solve it collectively, you don't have to tell them what to do. They're going to come up with the solutions with you. And so that's why I was very pleased to receive the responses, because people are saying, yes, there's a problem. We're going to solve it. For example, with COVID-19, how did we get to the point where we are right now? Everyone got together and say, we have a challenge that we're facing together, and we're going to come up with solutions. And if I learn something in my sector that could affect the entire sector, I'm going to share it with my colleagues in that sector so that they can learn from it as well. I'm not going to keep it to myself and keep the solution to myself. I'm going to share it. And that's what we're going to try to do with Black North, where we have companies that have tried certain things that work. We're going to make sure that we take that best practice and we apply it to other companies. We often hear, for example, companies say, we know that there is anti-Black systemic racism issues. We know that. So here's what we're going to do. we're going to say in a statement that we're against it, and we're going to give some money, for example, to the NAACP. Well, that does nothing to solve the problem. Because yes, of course, you have to come out publicly and say you're against it. You can't say you're for it. And if you're silent on the issue, it will almost presume that you're in favor. And giving the money is just, in my view, an excuse to say, okay, here's something that we're doing about it, but we don't know what the money is going towards, and we don't know how the problem is going to be solved. So we push the problem down the road. Now, what companies really should be saying is, we acknowledge that there is anti-Black systemic racism, and here's what we will do about it. And that is really what the Black North Group is here to solve. We identify the problem, and here's what we're going to do to solve it.
Do you have a sense that this will be different, that sort of pattern of behavior from companies and to a different extent by politicians, but in the specific case of companies for you, do you feel like that pattern of behavior where they just say, you know, we're against this and donate money, do you think that will shift?
This is the first time in history, because all those people who contacted us and say we are here to help, none of them have actually said, how much money do you need? Because they know what we need more than ever, anything else, are their brains. We need their brain to go to work to solve this problem, not their pocketbook. What the Black community needs is financial independence. But because of the fact that we've been shut out of the system for such a long time, it's impossible to create financial independence. We didn't really get the real civil rights until the 60s. We do not have generational wealth as a people. So if we get an opportunity to now at least get some financial independence, we don't need a handout. We don't need a government to come into our community and give us money and then come back later on and give us more. We want to create that wealth for ourselves. But all we need is access and opportunities.
I noticed what's written on your shirt. I wonder if you have a message for Canadians who might think that this is a more pronounced problem in the United States.
Well, it's on my shirt because my son is actually, when it happened, he said, I have to do something about it. And he decided to say, if you're a Black person, you're George Floyd. And anyone who knows you or a friend of yours, whether or not whatever color they are, they're also George Floyd. So my wife would wear a shirt that says, I'm married to George Floyd. I am George Floyd's wife. My son would say, I am George Floyd's son. And if George Floyd is your Black neighbor, I'm George Floyd's neighbor. And it's really showing support. And the money, 100% of it goes towards charities supporting the initiative. But the message really is that we're all in this together. We don't want our own anything. We just want to share what others have, because I think we're entitled. You know, the difference is that we're not newcomers. We hear people say, well, you just want stuff. We've been on this continent for over 400 years. And initially, we were brought here in bondage. And we were auctioned. And we were brought to a plantation. And we worked for free. So all we're saying is that I think we've earned the right to be equal. And that's what we're asking for.
I'm going to leave it there. I really appreciate your time this evening, Mr. Hall. Real pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Wes Hall is the executive chairman and founder of Kingsdale Advisors, as well as the founder and chair of the newly formed Canadian Council of Business Leaders Against Anti-Black Systemic Racism. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.